Hey everybody, welcome back to the Beyond the Sermon video podcast. I'm Pastor David Staff, and I'm really glad you joined me again today. We've just begun a new teaching series at Christ Community Church called Wisdom, Life's Priceless Treasure. It's a series from the Scriptures, and especially the book of Proverbs, which raises the question, what compass are you using to navigate through your years and days of life? Stephen Covey said it. He said, don't live your life simply according to the clock or a calendar. Live your life according to a compass. And so we're asking, what compass do you use to navigate your way through all of the important things that happen in your life? And yesterday in our teaching, I offered this, that life's best compass, life's most priceless treasure, is God's wisdom. Think about it. We have the opportunity to use God's wisdom as the needle point on our compass for our life. In this podcast, we want to raise and answer this question. How important is it to pursue God's wisdom? One of the things I realized when I was a parent of a couple of young children was this simple principle, that what my kids truly valued, they really went after. They sacrificed for. They made every effort to figure out how to get what they truly valued. When my son was a young boy, there was a toy called Mask. It was a car that if you twisted and turned it, and its hinges and different components, you could turn it into a vehicle for a superhero who could conquer then the world of evil. And the Mask vehicle back then was a $10 expense, which back in the 1980s was a bit of a considerable expense for our family. But my wife was very shrewd, and she said to Cameron, I'll tell you what, if you'll read me a story out loud, and Cameron was learning to read in those days, if you'll read me a story, for every story that you read me, I'll give you 25 cents. And Cameron pretty quickly did the math. Let's see, 2 stories, that's 50 cents. 3 stories, that's 75, 4 stories a day, I could earn $1. If I read 6 stories or 8 stories, that could be $2. And pretty soon he realized that he could earn the amount of money he needed for what he valued, that Masked superhuman vehicle. What you truly value, what I truly value, you sacrifice for. You go the extra mile for. When a young man or a young woman wants the attention of someone else of the opposite gender, they do their best to look their best and act their best and treat each other kindly while they're getting to know each other. When a person values a job, they make the extra effort to make their resume sharp. They think about and prepare for the interview. They do everything that they know how to be able to secure that job or career position that they're longing for. When a man values his marriage, he makes the extra effort in communication and in the care of his wife. He will plan special times where they can be together and develop their friendship and their camaraderie because he values his marriage. When I see someone out working out in the morning, jogging or running or riding their bike vigorously, and they're doing that before the light of dawn, when most people are still laying in their beds or sitting at their kitchen table and just eating something, this person is out working out. Why is that? Because they value physical fitness and the benefits of that in their life. The question we have right now is this. How important is it to pursue God's wisdom, to go after it as if it were a valued treasure? Here's what Proverbs chapter 2 says about that. Solomon writes, My son, if you will receive my words, if you will treasure my commands within you, so that your ear is attentive to skillful and godly wisdom, and apply your heart to understanding and seeking it conscientiously and striving for it eagerly, Yes, if you cry out for wisdom and insight, if you lift up your voice for understanding, if you seek skillful and godly wisdom as you would silver, and search for her as you would hidden treasures, well, then you will understand the reverent fear of the Lord, that worshiping him and regarding him is truly awesome, and you will discover the knowledge of God. For God gives wisdom, and from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores away wisdom for the righteous. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity. Proverbs chapter 2 is one of the best chapters in the Scriptures to answer our question, how important is it to pursue God's wisdom? There are three basic steps or encouragements in this chapter. Number one, if I truly prize God's wisdom in my life, I will pursue wisdom. I will go after it. I will seek it out. I will give everything I can to acquire it. You know, one of the things that is so important for any one of us is to understand growing as a person. Growing well as a person just doesn't happen automatically. It happens when you go after important and valuable things in your heart and in your life. To grow spiritually takes some effort. And in the first 4 verses of Proverbs 2, you have this call for the sons and daughters who are listening to Solomon's advice to go after and eagerly seek wisdom. You can see the terms here. If you receive and treasure my wisdom, then if you make your ear attentive and incline your heart toward wisdom, if you cry out for it and lift up your voice for wisdom, if you seek it and search it out as you were if you lost a lot of money or silver or gold or some hidden treasure. There's a crescendoing of just terms in those verses that talk about the eagerness and the intensity of going after God's wisdom. One of the things that we understand from Scripture, that if we are truly going to have this priceless treasure, we need to go after it. The great violinist Isaac Stern once was asked by a reporter, "What truly distinguishes a great musician?" And Stern's reply was very perceptive. He said, "A great musician is one who is always seeking to improve, never content with his past performances, always moving on to discover more about the instrument and the music he loves." I think any musician who really loves music would simply be nodding their head with Stern's comment there. If I truly prize God's wisdom, I in fact will pursue it with a single-mindedness that perhaps outstretches and outdistances others around me. The second thing this chapter speaks about is if I truly prize God's wisdom in my life, I will see 2 kinds of things happen. I will deepen in my relationship with the Lord, and I will avoid wrong relationships with men. Here's verse 5. If you pursue wisdom like Solomon is talking about in the first 4 verses, then, he says, you will understand the reverent fear of the Lord, and you will discover the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives skillful and godly wisdom, and from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. In fact, he stores away sound wisdom for the righteous, those who are in right standing with him, and he is a shield to those who are committed to walking in integrity. In fact, he guards the paths of justice, and he preserves the way of his saints. When you pursue God's wisdom, you are also deepening in this personal and wonderful relationship you have with this God who loves to endow us with his wisdom and his insight and his understanding and who he really is and what is really important. But the other thing that pursuing wisdom will do is not only deepen our relationships with God, but it will cause us and help us to avoid wrong relationships with men. It's interesting, in this chapter, you get to verse 12, and Solomon says this, God's wisdom will keep you from the way of evil and the evil man, from the man who speaks perverse things, from those who leave the paths of uprightness and walk in the ways of darkness, who find joy in doing evil and delight in the perversity of evil, whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. Isn't this something we want for our lives? We don't want to get wrapped up with people who are wrong-headed and evil and leave the paths of right living. We don't want our kids to get wrapped up in that either. We want to be able to deepen ourselves and them in a relationship with God that keeps our feet on a straight and good and productive path. But the other kind of person that the Proverbs says God's wisdom will keep us from is from the person who is anxious for adultery or wrong relationships. He writes here, God's wisdom will keep you from the immoral woman, from the seductress and her flattering words, who leaves the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. For her house leads down to death, and her paths go to the dead. None of her who go to her return, nor do they regain the paths of life. What an incredible promise from God. That if I really prize his wisdom, that means I will eagerly pursue it. I will go after it. It'll become a passion in my life. But secondly, it will deepen my relationship with God, and it will keep me, and it will keep protected from wrong relationships with men. Finally, Proverbs 2 adds that when I pursue God's wisdom, I will enjoy the rich favor of God's blessing. Listen to verse 20. So you will walk in the way of good men, that is, of those who are of personal integrity, moral courage, and honorable character. Wouldn't you love that to have the description of your life? You're a person of personal integrity, moral courage, and honorable character. So you will walk in the way of men like that and keep to the paths of the righteous. For the upright, those who are in right standing with God, will live in the land, and those of integrity who are blameless, God will remain in God's sight. Let me encourage you to develop this hunger, this eager pursuit, this valuing of God's wisdom, which, as we discovered yesterday, is so available, and God so longs to give it to us. But he does call us to pursue it. He does call us to receive it and treasure it and make our ear attentive and incline our heart toward it and to cry out for it and to lift our voice for it and to seek it and to search it out. When we bring an intensity and a passion to pursuing God's wisdom, God rewards us with not only the benefits of that wisdom, but a deepened relationship with him and the rich favor of his blessing. What a great promise from the Lord. We hope you will lean into these teaching sets over the next few weeks as we pursue wisdom, life's priceless treasure. And again, thanks for joining me on this video podcast. We'll see you next week.